So Crain just came out with an article about the glut of condos in the Chicago market, mostly new condo development in the downtown area. The couple buildings they noted which are of particular interest, first being 235 West Van Buren. It's a CMK development. It's about 47 stories tall. It has a shitload of units in the building. I think you're looking at about 780 units roughly in the building as a whole. Currently left to sell, they have 343 units. So they've only sold about 52% of the units in the building. So with 343 left to go, that is a pretty substantial number. So I guess the question is, if you're looking to buy into this building, at what point is it a good deal? Because in the back of your head, you're always thinking, how are they going to move these 343 units? When are they going to lower prices, and at what point are they going to have to lower prices so drastically to maybe sell 20 or 30 condos a month? When is that going to happen, if that's ever going to happen? A couple ways to answer that question. If you look at the amount of condos that sold recently, we could, of course, divide that into what's left and get a rough time frame, right? The problem is with something like CMK at 343 units, you're talking a pretty long time. I'm not sure the exact numbers that have sold in the building recently because they don't close them out on the MLS, so we're unable to see from a pure realtor standpoint that's not involved in the development directly on a day-to-day basis exactly what's sold. But I'm going to guesstimate that you're probably looking at the current rate of sales, at least. You're going to be looking probably at least about 3.5 to 4 years of inventory left in that building. I could see them maybe closing 7 to 8 a month right now in that building, so that would basically put you at about 4 years of inventory. If we take a look at something like Trump, for instance, and this is a building that everyone is, of course, interested in Chicago. If we look at Trump currently has 170 units left in the building. They've sold about 316. Right now, they're selling roughly 10 units per quarter. That averages out to, if you want to look at it, like maybe about 3 condos a month, 2 or 3 a month. So at that rate, you're looking at a pretty long time too to basically liquidate this building. Again, you're talking about 3 to 4 years if everything stays the same. Will it take that long to sell out Trump? Well, in a building like Trump, it very possibly may. You're not going to see Trump come down much more in pricing. Trump actually lowered pricing in the past year and a half to some pretty low levels that we haven't seen in the building before by the developer. An inside source tells us now what's going to happen is in the next month or two we're going to start to see prices increase in Trump on the development end. Because right now Trump is pretty much undercutting all secondary condo sales in the building. At least the majority of them they're undercutting. The difference is that there's a lot of individual owners who have bought in the past few years who have units available that Trump does not. Trump has sold out on all the premium tiers, the premium views. There's still some pretty good views left. However, what they have left is a lot of the same thing. So it's one view on the same floor a whole bunch of times. Or on different floors, but a whole bunch of times. You're not seeing a lot of those premier units. For instance, the 4,000 square foot A unit looking down the river, those have all sold. A lot of the 2,000 square foot 2 bedrooms looking down the river, the majority of those have sold. So what we're going to start to see in that building is we are going to start to see a slow uptick in pricing, which I think is going to be beneficial for the market. It's going to get a lot of people who are on the fence, hopefully off the fence, and get them to make decisions. Whether they're making decisions through the developer themselves, or if they're buying in the secondary market, it doesn't really matter. They're soaking up inventory. And at the end of the day, we can look at new construction condos as a separate marketplace, but you really don't want to do that. What you want to do is you want to look at new construction condos in conjunction with everything else listed, because right now everything is pretty much on an even playing field. You want to compare them with short sales as well, and you want to compare them with foreclosures, because again, if you're a buyer out there, you're looking for the best deal. You're looking across the board. My concern is, my concern with regard to new construction condos is how will prices need to adjust in the future? How low will prices have to go in order to move this inventory? The buildings that are of particular interest are going to be 235 Van Buren because they have 343 units left, and then One Museum Park West, which has 233 units left. One Museum Park West is such a unique situation because they've only sold 22% of the units in the building. This building is 1201 South Prairie. That's the address for the building. If you are familiar with the Museum Park South Loop at all, or drive along Lakeshore Drive, you'll notice there's a building at the corner of Roosevelt and Lakeshore that has a blue light at the top of it. This is not that building, but this is the sister building right next door, basically at the corner of Indiana and Roosevelt. So the curiosity here is basically what's going to happen with 80% of the building. How are they going to move 80%? There's no way they're going to be able to move them that quickly for a couple of reasons. One, there's a lot of them. But more importantly, because they've only closed 22%, it does present some finance options, some financing difficulties for some buyers. But more importantly, it really puts a lot more people on the fence because they're worried, again, what's going to happen with pricing in the future. Do I want to buy a condo on a floor that nobody else lives on? Do I want to be in a building that is 80%, literally 80% empty? So there's going to be a lot of hesitation there. What I'm worried about for the entire market is if we start to see buildings like Museum Park West, One Museum Park West, or 235 Van Buren drastically lower prices, it's going to suck up a lot of the buyers. It's going to suck up a lot of the demand. While it's going to decrease supply levels, which will be a good thing. It's also going to push prices down because there's still going to be a lot of people who need to sell in a 3 to 6 month time period because they're expanding their families or they're relocating their jobs across the country, what have you. And they really need to sell. Unlike developers who might be able to get loan extensions, things like that, these people need to sell in 3 to 6 months. Their specific units, and there's only one unit in question they're talking about. So they're going to be much more motivated to lower the prices on their own condos. So one of my worries is if we do see these developers start to give too many incentives, it is going to push the entire market down because even though these are new condos, newer developments, they're still in direct competition with every other condo on the market.